All right, so this video is about worksheet number 2, which is on mortgages. You watched the introductory videos already, hopefully, so you already kind of got a sense that mortgages are the loans that you take out for houses. As many of my current students know, I actually had a personal experience with my first home mortgage this school year. In October this year, we decided we wanted to go buying a house. We started the process, and we actually bought a house in October and then moved in later in November. We'd been renting all before that, but we decided it was time. It was the right financial move for us. We were able to afford a house that we enjoyed and that we really liked without paying much more than our current rent payment was at the time. And that also gave us the opportunity to start building equity in a home, which will hopefully go up in value. I did learn a lot through the mortgage process. I'd never gone through it before, so there were a lot of questions that needed to be answered for me to fully understand exactly what was going on, a lot of paperwork, and it is truly the biggest financial commitment I've ever made in my life, and it is probably the biggest financial commitment that you guys will ever make as far as these types of loans. There's something very dramatic about taking out a 30-year loan and committing to making your mortgage payment for the next 30 years. I'm not actually going to tell you how old I'll be 30 years from now and give away my age, but suffice it to say, I'll be thinking about retiring from teaching by the time this 30-year mortgage is fully paid off. So it's a big deal. With that said, I hope that in doing this activity today, you'll take into account and really take a little bit of time to think about how big these numbers are. And as you do the calculations, start thinking about what kind of questions you have and what kind of lifestyle you will end up wanting as you move towards your life after high school. The digging deeper topic right after this actually also goes into the question of renting versus buying. So it'll be interesting to have done this activity and then do a little bit of research on whether it's worth it. We're going to start our activity just like how often you start your home buying process, with a little bit of a search on Zillow. So let's get going. All right, so let's start our hypothetical home buying process. We're going to start like many home shoppers do on Zillow. And I'm going to show you where actually you can find the house that we're using for all these scenarios. It's the same one listed at the top of the worksheet. All I did was type in this address from the worksheet into Google, and this listing is the first one that pops up. And this can just kind of give you a sense of what you're buying, at least hypothetically in our scenarios here. So you can see up in the top right corner, I know I'm kind of covering it here in the screencast, but you can see that it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. So good, big enough size for maybe a small family, or a couple just starting out, or a single person that wants to have an office and maybe a guest room. About 900 square feet. And it's listed for $128,000. Price point wise, we're going to see as we do some calculations here what that breaks down to as a monthly payment. In general, I would probably describe that price as something that you probably would be able to afford on an entry-level job, maybe right after college kind of thing. But basically, this is going to be a good starter home. You can look at some of the pictures, kind of get a sense of what this affords you and like what kind of house you might be buying here. So this gives you a sense of the house that we're using. We're going to use the same house, like I said, for all of the scenarios. So I'm going to switch back here over to the worksheet, and I'll make myself just a little bit bigger here. All right, so I'm going to switch back here over to the worksheet, and then we're going to talk through, this is a little picture of the listing, and we're going to use this price as our selling price for all the different scenarios we work through. And we're going to work through several to give you a sense of the different loan possibilities that might be out there for this house, and how buying this house could look a little bit differently depending on the credit score you bring to the table and what loan what interest rates are available at the time when you go loan shopping, because those do fluctuate as you go in through this process. All right, so let's start this first scenario. We're using this as our selling price. We're going to calculate the monthly payment of your house at the given interest rate for 30 years if you are financing the entire amount at an interest rate of 3.75%. And remember that financing the entire amount means that you are not putting down a down payment. Now, that's generally not very realistic when it comes to home buying. Most home buying purchases, you'll make some sort of down payment, but this will at least give us a good control variable to kind of compare to as we do some of the other scenarios here. All right, so if we are financing the entire amount, that means the selling price is our loan amount. So we're just going to go ahead and copy that down in that first line of that box. Our loan term in years is going to be 30 years. And then doing that in months, we'll just need to multiply that by 12. So that's going to be 360 months. And our interest rate is 3.75%. All right, these questions are going to work just like before. You're going to calculate your monthly payment, how much you pay back to the bank at the end of your loan, and then how much you'll just be paying in interest. So for that first question, to do your monthly payment, we're going to go to our online calculator. All right, so I'm going to enter in my loan amount, $128,000. My mortgage term is 30 in 360 months, and I'm going to change this to a 3.75, not 375% loan there. I'm going to hit calculate, and that says my monthly payment is $592.79 per month. So I'm going to copy that down onto my paper there. $592.79 a month, almost $600 a month. All right, so that is just for your rent, or excuse me, not for your rent, just for your mortgage payment instead of your rent. That's about how much you'd be paying towards this house. Okay, so let's do some further calculations. Next calculation is how much we pay back to the bank. So we're going to take this amount and multiply it by our number of months. So in this case, times 360. So I'm going to throw that into my calculator. And I get $213,404.40. And that is actually how much you will end up paying for this house over the lifetime of your loan. Even though the selling price is listed as that, that's how much you're actually going to pay. Think about that for just a moment. Look at how far apart those numbers are. But that's because of how much we're paying in interest over 30 years. Think about how old you are if you bought this house today. How old would you be 30 years from now? What would you, when you finally paid that loan off? All right, so then to find our interest, we take our loan, the amount we're paying to the bank, and subtract our loan amount. So remember, you're just using this value here to subtract 128,000. So we take that number still in our calculator, subtract that off, and then $85,404.40 becomes just our interest amount. Think about that. That's how much you end up paying the bank in just interest. That's more than some people make in a year. That's just interest. That's kind of crazy to think about. All right, so that's our first scenario, walking you through if you're financing the entire amount. All right, let's go through one more example and talk through what if we actually do a down payment. So in this example, we're going to do a down payment of 3%. So this is, remember, money you're going to pay up front before you take out your loan. And this is pretty typical of home buying. Most times you have to put down a down payment, sometimes up to at least 10%. And remember, the higher down payment you can put in, the less you're going to have to borrow. And you'll see the effect that that has on how much interest you end up paying over time. Okay, so if I need to do a 3% down payment, that means I need to do 3% of our $128,000 price tag on our house. So to do this, remember 3% means 0.03. So you're going to be multiplying that times 128,000 to figure out what just your down payment is. So I'm going to do that in my calculator. And that gives me a down payment of $3,840. Okay, so then that's how much I have to write a check for on the day I'm buying my house. And then how much of a loan amount then do I need? I just need to subtract that amount from 128,000, which was the original price of the house. So that is how much I'm actually going to need for my loan. So right off the bat, I didn't need to take out as big of a loan for this scenario. Okay, this amount is now what I put down here. I don't put down the 128,000 because I don't need a loan for that amount. Okay, then let's see here. In this scenario, my loan term is still 30 years, so 360 months, and 3.75% is still my interest rate. All right, now we're going to go back to the online calculator. Okay, so back on the online calculator here, I'm going to go ahead and enter my new loan amount, which has changed now to $124,160. My mortgage term is still 30 years, 360 months, and I kept the same interest rate. So I'm going to go ahead and hit calculate, and that came down a little bit. It was almost $600. Now it's only $575. So we saved just a little under 25 bucks a month. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it makes a little bit of a difference, and that's just putting 3% down. So I'm going to go back to my worksheet and copy that down there, $575 for my payment, and then we'll do the same process and see how that impacts our amount of interest paid at the end. So 575 times 360, and then I'll subtract my loan amount of 124,160. Remember, I'm using that amount there. Okay, so 575 times 360, it gives me 207,000. That's how much I end up paying for this house. That's down a little bit compared to what I paid the last time. And then minus 124,160. Still quite a bit in interest, but it's come down. Let's see, came down just a little under $3,000 we saved there in interest. So we don't end up paying nearly as much in interest there. So this will give you kind of a sense of how you can kind of control the parameters of your loan and what kind of impact those have. They often say the more you can save for the down payment, the less you have to end up obviously getting a loan for, and you should see an impact in the result. How much you end up paying for the house overall should come down as well when you keep going through these examples here. So in the next scenario, you're doing a down payment of 5%. So keep in mind that you're going to need to multiply by 0.05 times the home selling cost there, times that amount. So that's a down payment of 0.05. The next scenario, keep an eye out. You are financing the entire amount for that one, but you're doing it for 15 years with a very low interest rate there of 2.5%. And then this last scenario, this one is one where it's described as having not so good credit. So the best you're able to qualify for is a 30-year loan. That's a pretty long time. That's a very high interest rate. That means you did not have a very good credit score there. And they're making you put down a 10% down payment. So in order for them to even qualify you for this loan, they need to see that you can at least put that down so you're less of a risk for the lender in this case. So that should be an interesting scenario to work through there as well. But once you're finished with these scenarios, kind of look back, look at the different comparisons and think through kind of the impact of those numbers there. As always, shoot us questions if you've got them.